A lot of business owners, when they get confronted with things that create stress, resistance, anxiety, fear, it pushes them to indecision, and it's the indecision that kills them. And so I tell business owners, you need to look for those moments where you're like, this is a do or die moment.
Yeah.
And then take action.
This man in 48 months built a company with Grant Cardone called Cardone Ventures that is now on pace to do over $135 million this year. He sold his company for 9 figures. I got none other than Brandon Dawson.
There's 10 elements to building and scaling a business. Starts with strategy, then it goes to marketing, then it goes to sales, then it goes to building a business is not a thing.
Yep.
It's a system.
Yeah.
And it's a process. And the process changes when you get to 3 million to go to 8. Small businesses stay small because the thinking is small. They become big because the thinking decides to become big. They run into the technical aspect of, we're sitting in the hotel and I got a text from my CFO that says there's a problem. I'm laying on the bed and I'm staring at my Morgan Stanley app, refreshing it. It's not coming. I'm getting more and more freaked out, right? And all of a sudden, ding! $56 million wired in my account. You think you're gonna jump out of the bed and be like, oh my God. I set my phone down and I just sat there and I took a deep breath and I was like, I don't feel anything. And then all of a sudden I got sad.
What's up, Wealth Builders? Today, I've got somebody I've been dying to have on the show. This man in 48 months built a company with Grant Cardone called Cardone Ventures that is now on pace to do over $135 million this year. Not in portfolio revenue or anything, but in their actual revenue for the company. And they've got, I think, over $2 billion of portfolio value. It's absolutely insane. And he sold his company for 9 figures. They call him, well, one guy, Pete Vargas, my friend, calls him Mr. 77X because he sold at 77 times EBITDA, which is kind of mind-blowing. I want to talk about. But I got none other than Brandon Dawson. What's up, man?
Hey, Ryan. It's great to be on your show.
Yeah. Appreciate you coming out. And I've gotten to meet you a few times over at Cardone HQ, and every time you speak, it's incredible to hear the way your mind thinks compared to most. Because for me anyways, most of the entrepreneurs I interview, they're all kind of just working on their business and they're making great money and all this. And you're like, well, I'm already thinking about the exit in mind. I'm thinking about how we can bundle up businesses together. And so that really opened my mind to possibilities.
Yeah, well, I mean, the small SME space, small and mid-sized businesses, people, they talk about that space, but most people don't understand the opportunities within it. So it's a $12 trillion space. There's $5.5 trillion of wealth transfer in that space, businesses owned by baby boomers. 97% of all businesses under 100 million fail cyclically every 10 years.
Wow.
And 93% of those businesses are family owned. So when the business fails, the family struggles. And when the business is ready to be sold, it's usually the lifeblood of the family. Mm-hmm. So understanding how to decentralize the growth process, create value for those business owners, and take advantage of that $12 trillion space, that is what my commitment is.
Yeah, it's interesting because when I hear guys who are doing 9 figures or going for $1 billion, they're like, hey, we need one big company that's an enterprise level company. And you're like, hey, let's help out the small business, mid-sized business owners and figure out how we can help these guys sustain. Would you say that that's the ethos of what Cardone Ventures does?
It is. And it's my commitment because I started my first business in my 20s and I hated my job. I was making more money than my bosses. Mm-hmm. And so I decided to go out on my own with a newborn and a 2.5-year-old and sold everything I had. I was making $150,000 a year at 25 years old as running a sales team.
Yep.
And I went out and slugged it out in the marketplace, and I was told no 100 times. I was trying to buy businesses, trying to raise capital. And for a kid that graduated with a 2.4 GPA, voted least likely to succeed out of a class of 35 students, I had a lot of headwind.
Where was that?
I was in Corvallis, Oregon.
Okay.
Yeah, and so, but by 29 years old, I rang the opening bell of the American Stock Exchange. I was one of the youngest people to do it, and I had raised $28 million with Warburg Pincus, one of the most prestigious private equity groups in the world, and done multiple rounds of fundraising and acquired 138 businesses. So I had a lot of practice, a lot of practical experience from 26 years old to 30 years old.
Yeah, let's talk about that because you don't really hear that kind of story. Yeah. With most entrepreneurs, they're like, hey, I'm going to start a business and try and grow it. And then maybe they find out later oh, yeah, I should probably build it to sell. And whatever. So you started off in this business acquisition space. Like, what made you want to do that?
Well, I was running a sales team out of Minneapolis in the hearing care space, and a lot of my customers were coming to town saying, this has been great working with you guys, but we've decided to retire, so we just gave all our files and our business to our competitors. And then the first thought I'd have is, well, are those competitors buying my product? Because if they're not, I just lost my client.
Right.
So I went to the owner of the company. I'm like, hey, we should be buying these businesses. There was nobody buying them. They would literally just shut them down.
Yeah.
And the owner's like, it's a conflict because we're a distribution and supply company. And so the more of my customers doing that, I'm like, nobody else is doing this. I can't make more money where I'm at. I might as well be the first one to go out and start buying these businesses. And I had $500 million under contract within 48 months.
Wow. So how did you go about raising capital for the first time?
The first million, I made about 100 presentations. I was laughed out almost all of them.
Yeah.
And then there was a $500 million fund, Raoul Saget, up in Vancouver, BC.
Okay.
And I presented to him one day, and he started falling asleep. It was like my 110th presentation. In fact, I talk about this. My new book, 9-Figure Mindset, is coming out, and I talk about the drive up there because I was desperate. I had run out of money. I wanted to live my dream. It was a foggy night. I was in my car driving from Portland, Oregon up to Vancouver, BC, and I pulled over and sobbed like a baby for 45 minutes because I thought I was on the verge of failure. And I got my shit together, drove up there, and that night I closed my first $1 million investor deal. So literally I talked Raul into giving me $1 million to start my company.
What do you think you did different in that pitch?
I know exactly what I did different because I had a chairman of the company and I had a board member, and they were doing 80% of the pitch, and then they were introducing me as the guy they brought in to do it. And I'm 27 years old, and investors are looking at me like, what could this kid possibly know?
Yeah.
But by the time it was my turn, these two guys that were financial guys had already bored the hell out of the people they were presenting to. Even me. I was like, my God, but they were my seniors.
Yeah.
So I went into that meeting and I said, guys, I'm going to handle this one.
This ain't working.
And I reversed the presentation. Instead of here's who we are and here's what we do and here's who I am and here's what we're about and here's what our plan is and blah, 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 blah. I flipped it the other way and said, if I could build a business that's going to be doing $500 million, making 25%, and I can buy those businesses for almost zero money down at all, zero cost of capital, and I can buy as many as I want.
Yeah.
Is that an investment thesis you'd be interested in? I didn't even open my presentation. My elders were like, you can't do that. That's disrespectful.
It's not how we've done it.
Yeah. And the guy looks at me and he's like, well, yeah.
Why wouldn't I want that?
Yeah. And he goes, well, how could you do that? And I said, good question. And then I went into my presentation, but it was his idea.
Yeah.
And then he started falling asleep because he'd go in to do trading at like 4 a.m.
Oh.
So I shut the book and kind of slammed it on the table. I said, Raul. And he opened his eyes and I go, I'm buying one of these businesses. Excuse me. I'm buying one of these businesses. It's right down the street. If you want to see what I'm talking about, I'll pick you up in the morning and take you over there. His broker says, oh, Raul's busy and you can't, don't be so aggressive. And Raul looks at me and he goes, what time can you pick me up? That night, we went and looked at the business. I was buying a $750,000 business for $100,000.
Yep.
Getting $250,000 of inventory. So on the way back in the car, I sat in the back seat. He made his broker drive my car. And we went through the book that I tried to present the day before. And he said, give me a day or two to think about it. We got a call at 8:00 that night, asked if we could come over to his house, had a glass of wine. He handed me a check for $1 million.
Wow. So that was the startup capital you needed to start going and buying the businesses.
And thank God I had the resilience to keep showing up. And I was so bold enough to not allow somebody else to control my life with those two seniors, which both guys taught me more about business than you'll ever know, because the business I bought half of was already a little Canadian public company, and I had to learn from one of those guys how to run a public company, which made me the business guy I am today.
Wow. Isn't that's a tough thing for people? Well, there's two elements to that story that I think people can learn from. One is obviously the resilience, right? 100 no's to finally get your first yes. And how many people get hung up on a few times or a couple of weeks and they're like, this ain't for me. This is too hard, right? They don't have the resilience. They don't believe in enough of what they're doing. Like that's number one. The second thing is having the discernment on knowing, hey, you know what? I respect what these guys have accomplished, and they've given me a lot of value, but I'm still going to go with my gut and try this. It takes a lot of courage. It's not easy.
To be honest, looking back, I was a little bit in survival mode. I didn't have a choice. I was getting desperate. And sometimes I tell business owners that's exactly where you might want to be.
Yeah.
Because that desperation is the moment in which you're going to take action that's different than what you'd been doing in the past.
Yeah.
And a lot of business owners, when they get confronted with things that create stress, resistance, anxiety, fear, it pushes them to indecision, and it's the indecision that kills them.
Yeah.
And so I tell business owners, you need to look for those moments where you're like, this is a do or die moment.
Yeah.
And then take action.
Yeah.
And the more times you take action and you get a positive result, the higher your confidence goes.
Yeah.
Building a business is purely a game of confidence.
Entrepreneurs, if you want to grow your business, there is no better investment than your own personal brand. The smartest thing I ever did was start creating content and investing into my brand. Ever since then, we've been able to triple our business. I've been able to raise more money than ever to continue buying more real estate. And it's all because I create content just like this. Now, a lot of people have asked me, Ryan, how am I supposed to do it? I don't know where to start. I don't know who's going to edit it. I don't know even what kind of setup or camera or anything to do. Well, here's the thing. We can help you with all of that at Pineda Media. We have a podcast checklist that you can actually get for free at pinedamedia.com that's going to go over everything you need on starting a podcast. But to make matters even better, we'll actually edit your podcast for you. We'll repurpose it into short form clips like you see on my Instagram and my TikTok so that people will start seeing those clips and watching your podcast and in turn being customers or investors in your business. So if you want the one-stop solution where you can get everything done for you, plus get the education you need to grow your personal brand, then you need to go to pinedamedia.com and book a free call with our team. You can also go get that free podcast checklist and that training program absolutely free by just going there. So go check it out. So you get this first investment. Your confidence is now finally sparked. You go out, you buy some businesses. How the heck did you grow it to buying $500 million? Well,
I had $500 million in my portfolio to buy.
Yeah.
Well, then I went and bought a couple businesses, came down to the U.S. where my customers were.
Yep.
Now I had money, had a little public company. I was able to use stock and cash.
So you became publicly traded.
It was trading public. The guy that sold me half the company had already backed the company, a $3 million business, into the Alberta Stock Exchange.
Wow.
I didn't know shit about any of that.
And that's crazy.
I just needed to raise the first $1 million.
Yeah.
Right? Because he said, you need to now raise some money.
Yeah.
So he sold me 50% of his company on a $600,000 note that I had to pay within 36 months.
Got it. Okay.
That note was his free trading stock in the Alberta Stock Exchange. And so after I raised the $1 million, he took me to some guys he's friends with in Dallas. And they said, if you can go get $20 to $40 million of businesses under letter of intent for 1 times EBITDA, we'll give you the $6 million to close on those businesses. So I put my head down and I went and when I showed back up within 4 months, I had $100 million of businesses in letter of intent.
Wow.
And they were like, we're taking you to New York because our $6 million is just going to get you started.
It's not enough. Yeah.
So they gave me half, 3, and it was a group of 4 guys, Baron Cass, John Strauss, Mark Still, and Doug Good. They gave me 3 and then took me to New York. Now, back when I was on the Orchard listening to Casey Kasem Top 40, I just dreamed about getting out of Corvallis, Oregon, and I dreamed about being in a tall building in New York City and doing something cool and doing something important. And when I would express that, people would be like, dude, just settle up for like working at Les Schwab.
Yeah, go get a ranch and chill.
Yeah, go work, go buck hay, right? You're not smart enough. You barely got out of high school.
Yeah.
To think that at 27 years old, I started making presentations to Smith Barney and Solomon Brothers before it was Solomon Smith Barney, to Goldman Sachs.
Yeah.
I'm in their buildings in New York City presenting to raise. I was trying to raise $15 million. I raised the 6, 3 out of Dallas, 3 out of New York.
Yeah.
But now I was trying to raise 15.
Wow.
And so I was making presentations to big institutions. And I remember first I had to get a banker. Smith Barney said, hey, we'll take you up and we'll take you around. Next thing you know, I'm literally on the 88th floor of the World Trade Center presenting for people to invest in my business. My dream came true so fast.
Yeah.
And to everyone else, it was still a bullshit thing. And Warburg Pincus came in and said, hey, I know you're asking for 15, but we're going to give you 18 at the same valuation, but we have one condition. We want you to get out of Canada, list on the American Stock Exchange, so we're going to give you the 18 so you qualify.
Wow.
And so in 1998, I rang the opening bell of the American Stock Exchange, and it was unbelievable. My little $600,000, I started getting my stock certificates back because it went from, when I bought it, it was 8 cents a share. When I listed on the American Stock Exchange, it was $10.
Wow.
So I started getting these statements saying I'm worth $10 million at 27 years old.
You're like, this is crazy.
Yeah, it was crazy fun.
Yeah.
Started building and buying and smashing together, and it was right before the internet, and it was people running on AS400s and building teams. Here I am 27, 28, 29 trying to hire 50-year-old CFOs and CMOs and COOs, and I didn't know.
You're like, what is a C-suite? Like, why do I need a board? Like, what are we doing here?
Yeah, but I had to run it as a public company.
Yeah.
And so that taught me a lot of discipline early on.
Yeah.
Made a couple missteps, acquired some businesses that set us back.
Yeah.
Had to do an emergency round of financing in 1999.
How do you deal with that when, like, okay, you're publicly traded now, and obviously the stock's going to go up and down, and investors are like, your obligation is now to make the investors money. Like, that's what it ends up becoming. And when they lose money and you need emergency fund, like, how is it going through that?
Yeah, it's like getting tied up to the back of a truck and drugged through a wrecking yard.
Everybody's just saying you're the worst.
They're like, why would I give you money? You didn't do it. You didn't do it the first time around.
Yeah.
So what happens is you end up taking the money and conceding something. And what I had to concede was Warburg went from 35% ownership to 43%, but they put a clause in there that gave them control under certain circumstances.
Right.
Fast forward 2 years later, the business is finally crushing it. We're on our way to 100 million. I'm getting free money offered all over the world. I'm the only consolidator. I'm the only one with a management team. I'm the only one with systems. Nobody else could touch us. We were going to dominate the world. And
this was all small business, mid-sized business.
All
still.
Little $500,000 to $1 million guys I was buying for basically, 100 grand.
Nobody was doing this.
Nobody was doing it. And I had launched a franchise division because I couldn't buy them fast enough. And I also realized that when I bought them, there was a devaluation cycle because getting them to use my systems, nobody was using systems. Getting them to do something as simple as daily cash deposits, they resisted it. Getting them to use my selling process and getting them onto my products, they just resisted. So I went out to the $500 million and said, hey, if you want to sell to me, you have to do these 5 things first and then I'll buy you. Well, I made more money doing that than I did buying the businesses because there was no cost to serve, and I was making money from them buying through me. And so I went to the board and said, hey, this is going to be a big business. I want to do it. And they're like, nah, you can do it on your own if you want to. Here's a waiver, go do it. But I knew it was going to be the thing that saved the company, and I was focused on the 6 guys that gave me the original $6 million.
Yeah.
So I kept it in the company even though they told me not to.
Yeah.
That business went from 0 to $1 million a month of profit within 36 months. It was the value of the whole company.
And that was just like education, services.
It was franchise. It was like,
franchise.
hey, you buy your products through me, you pay me to use all my things instead of me buying you and then trying to force you to do it.
Yeah.
And if you do that and you do it for a year, then I'll buy you.
Right.
So this is how you're going to do your exit.
Right.
And everyone's like, cool, okay. So they did it, and then they're like, we're making more money doing it with you, so we don't want to necessarily sell.
Yeah.
And I don't have the operating headaches because I got operators that are making money and they're building the business, but I'm making more money than if I owned the business and had to deploy capital.
And if I'm not mistaken, this is the same model Cardone Ventures runs.
It's different. It's different today, but it's similar in ways.
Yeah.
So that whole business, Warburg came to me and said, thanks for building a great business. We're selling it. Off, and they sold it out from underneath me.
What?
So I went from being worth 10 million at 29 to being worth nothing at 31.
Why did they sell it like for nothing?
Because they had been in it for 5 years. September 11th happened.
Okay.
It's September and I was in a $2 billion portfolio that had already appreciated to $7 billion, and they were going to disperse it. It's a technical issue, right? Because they had invested their stock at $5, but it had traded down to $2. And they liquidated me to all the LPs at $2 a share, but they converted me to cash 4 months later at $6 a share because they got their original money back plus 20% compounded over 5 years, and that went to the partners.
Right.
So they just liquidated me so they could create bonuses for the executive team.
Wow.
And you don't know what you don't know when you're doing deals.
Right.
It was a huge wake-up call because me and my 6 guys all got fucked anyway. I should have just set up that other company and given them 25% equity, and we'd have been worth hundreds of millions of dollars.
Wow.
So I was pissed. I was bitter. I went through a cycle of being, you know what Grant would say, a little bitch, but my mentor... My good mentor and best friend, Hector Lamarck, says, you're being a drainer, dude. We used to play golf all the time. He's like, I'm not golfing with you anymore because you were a superstar. You were like Superman.
Yeah.
You had all this confidence, and now you're just like, only if, and if they hadn't screwed me over, you know what I'd be doing today, and they took all my money away. And he's like, I can't fucking stand to be around you. So either fix your shit or we're not hanging out anymore.
Right.
So I went on a journey to fix my shit. And on that journey, I found mentorship. I had to go back and honestly assess. Here's the thing, what I know when business owners are like, man, I got it and I'm killing it and I got it all figured out and it's going, we're crushing it. They don't know what they don't know, and it's going to bite them in the ass. And I know that because I was that guy that wouldn't listen to anybody because I became so self-sufficient in believing in myself and striving and having resilience and busting through every glass ceiling and making it happen until with one clause in an agreement that was 4 inches thick that I could have constructed my other agreements in a way that did not violate the one clause, but I did not remember the one clause. So the one clause is if you ever bring debt into the company, it creates a condition where we can immediately execute a sale. I could have called, I did a deal where a manufacturer gave me $20 million. I could have called it a prebate. I could have called it an advance. I could have called it a joint venture, but I called it a loan. So when they sold me, I had $20 million of free capital, a contract that was going to pay me another $1 million a month of pure profit, and they just shotgunned it out to an international company, and I couldn't even respond fast enough to stop it.
That's insane. Wealth Builders, if you are trying to grow your real estate investing business, then you need to join us at Wealthy Investor. If you have no idea what Wealthy Investor is, it is our coaching program and community. We have helped thousands of students worldwide grow their business. Now, it doesn't matter if you're just getting started and you're trying to get that first deal. We can help you do that. If you're trying to scale your business and go from a few deals a year to a few deals a month or even 7 figures a year, we can help you do that too. In fact, last year alone, we had over 30 students do over $1 million in revenue. And I'd love for you to be the next one. So it's pretty simple. If you're trying to grow your business and wholesale more homes or flip more homes or buy more rental properties, then you need to go to wealthyinvestor.com and book a free call with our team. It's super simple. We'll go on a strategy call with you and figure out how we can help you grow according to your needs. So all you got to do is go to wealthyinvestor.com, book the free call with the team, and we'll see you there. So a few things on this that I have questions on. One is, I mean, obviously publicly traded companies are very different than private companies. And the other part of it is, you know, they always talk about like Wall Street being cutthroat. And it's like, man, like, I just, like, how is it so possible to be so cutthroat when you've like made them so much money? They just don't care. Like, what was the deal? These guys are your partners.
Yeah, let me tell you, for anybody listening to this doesn't understand private equity, they're not bad guys. See, I had to fess up that if I was the investor, I would have sold the business too. Because what they saw was a young entrepreneur that was thrashing around, that was reckless. And what they saw was someone who, when they said don't do something, even though it won, I did it anyway.
Yeah, they can control you.
So so let me just tell you, confusion always creates failure. I had to really own, these were good guys. And what they saw was a lucky, sloppy person that was winning, but for how long?
They knew it was going to run out.
And they saw an opportunity to get all their money back, plus make all their returns and keep it for the partners. So they're like, let's just get out of this thing.
Yeah.
Now, I will tell you, if it was my money and I saw what they saw in reflection, I would have done exactly the same thing. So I had to grow up a little bit and admit that I created the conditions to create the insecurities for them to pull the trigger.
So you think that had you been more, I don't want to say controlled, but just like listen to their advice.
Consistent.
Yeah, they wouldn't have did that.
No.
So they had to protect their investment.
Yeah, and I would have done. I'd do the same thing today.
Wow. And
it was before Sarbanes-Oxley and some things, so the certification process and all that stuff didn't. They couldn't do what they did then today. It would be a different process. But they did it, and I would have done it. And so I don't begrudge them. I still thank them. I look back on all that experience, and it's like, first of all, I asked the question, who would can give a 27-year-old $18 million. So the fact that I got them to believe in me enough to do that, and then they stuck with me for 5 years, I can't fault those guys. I didn't do what I said I was going to do.
Yeah.
I pivoted the business, and I put a debt stack in front of their preferred equity. And this is where I had to grow up and learn about debt stacks and process and read documents, and I had to own all the mistakes I made. And once I owned those mistakes, it's like a light switch went on. I had to go and say, okay, I was a shitty leader. I didn't really pay attention to the financials. I deferred that to my CFO.
Yep.
I was out selling the concept, being the visionary, raising the capital, but I was not paying attention. I was doing the deals, but I wasn't paying attention to the operations with discipline and accountability, and that was on me. So given the opportunity to do it differently, what would I do different? And I went and created my own. I drew out like all the things I did. Hector said, write down all the things you did great, and then write down where you were weak.
Yeah.
And I identified each weakness, and then he gave me books. John Maxwell on leadership, Sharon Lechter on Cash Flow Quadrant, and then eventually 3 Feet to Gold. Robert Anthony on Beyond Positive Belief, or Beyond Positive Thinking. So these books just come, and I started reading them and dissecting them and highlighting them and underlining them, and I literally created in all those books from 1 to 500 tabs that I correlated with where I screwed up. And then I took that, and I'm like, wait a minute. If I can do what I did that was great, and I can do what these tabs all say, and I start a business with not using anybody else's money, I grow it entirely bootstrapped and organic, I share the equity with my customers and my employees instead of raising capital and giving it to investors, and I could build that business and invent that business, I could change how small businesses are built, but I'm going to have to do it first to have any credibility.
Right.
And that was my launch of Audigy Group in 2005.
How long did that process take from like moping to
2 years?
2 years. It was a 2 year like.
I looked like a dog dragging his ass around. I really did. Like for people that knew me, I'm going to take the hill. I'm going to kill it. And then they meet me. I'm like, oh my God, those guys fucked me over and I'm miserable.
Right.
It was sad.
Yeah.
I look back at that period of time. It was really for the.
But it's part of your journey. I mean, everyone goes through it of failure and regret and moping and whatever you want to call it. And then you're like, bro, I got to quit this. You know, whether it's an addiction, whether it's a failure, whether it's a divorce, whether it's some mistake you made. People like dwell on these mistakes for so long. And some people, it just continues the rest of their life. They never accept it.
Yeah, and what's even scarier is I found that same place again for 2 years. So I start this business. I do everything I said I was going to do. I read John Maxwell. I read all these authors. I get to know the authors in 2009 and 10 because when the world was melting down, I was Inc. 500. I was fastest growing private company. I was 3 times Entrepreneur of the Year. Like I was killing it 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And I was working with John Maxwell at this time. And I was working with Sharon. And I was working with all these authors that I read their books.
Yeah.
Michael Gerber, I was actually doing things with them and working in their businesses. They had moved from their being authors to meeting them.
Yeah.
And because of the way I deployed their work, like Michael Gerber went into one of our businesses and saw a plaque on the wall, hearing aid office, and he called me.
He already wrote E-Myth by then?
Yeah. This was like E-Myth's 40 years old, right? So
is it? I don't even know.
This was 2000. This was 2009.
Yeah.
So he sees a plaque on the wall, the Michael E. Gerber Operational Effectiveness Award, and he asked the provider, like, who gave you that? She goes, oh, this management company I work for, they have leadership awards and operating awards. He goes, I want to talk to the CEO. Now, 90 days earlier, I'd called E-Myth to see if I could hire him to speak, and they told me he's no longer at E-Myth. So I had been talking about, man, I don't know where Michael Gerber is, but if I could get him, we all read E-Myth, I'd like to have him at the meeting. Well, so he happened to walk into one of my offices and one of my audiologists said, hey, this guy's been trying to find you. He's like, let me call him. So then he flies up, spends 2 days with me. For 6 months, it's all he could talk about. I wrote the book. I've been so frustrated my whole life. I've never actually seen an E-Myth company, but now for the first time I have. Brandon Dawson has created the first E-Myth company I've actually ever seen.
Wow.
Then he flew to our event. I didn't pay him. And he said, look, he's not paying me. You all just need to know what he's built for you.
Wow.
And then for 6 months on Michael E. Gerber Radio, all he talked about Brandon Dawson. We almost did what I did with Grant.
Yeah.
I almost did with Gerber in 2010. But I wasn't ready for it yet.
Yeah.
Got to know all my mentors. I was crushing it in business. And then one of my private equity mentors, when I was telling him I'm going to launch all these verticals, I'd done all this research. Everything I'm doing today, I dreamed about doing and hired research companies in 9, 10, 11, 12, all the way up to 2018. Thousands of businesses. Where do you break? Where did you win? What went wrong? What decisions did you make? That's how I created all the science behind what I talk about.
Yeah.
And my mentor said, dude, before you go launch a bunch of other companies, if you screw up the one that is the example, the prototype, no one's going to believe you about value creation.
Yep.
So I shut all that stuff down and I said, I'm going to go sell my business. And I had 8 specific targets that I knew that if they bought me, I could double or triple their business.
Okay.
Because of the way we engineer businesses. I engineered their businesses.
Yeah.
And then I engineered me inside of it. So my sales pitch, when I hired Piper Jaffray's, the head of healthcare, he said, dude, nobody's going to buy into your sales pitch. Like it's too, you're crazy because you're asking for 7 times revenue, 70, or at the time, 90 times EBITDA.
What was your EBITDA at the time?
2.4 million.
Yeah.
35 million of
so
revenue.
like what exactly was your company doing?
So what I was doing was going in and helping independent businesses organize.
So it was an education company.
It was an education operations company.
Okay.
So I'd educate them and then they'd hire me and partner with me to operate them.
Okay.
So I built a management company with 200 employees that served 1,000 locations but the thing was, I got my equity structure pushed through the SEC. So you talk about all this decentralized equity structures and stuff that people can't get pushed through. I innovated that. I had a SEC approved structure I launched in 2005. I fought with them for a year to get it pushed through. But when I sold my business, 35% of the equity was held by my customers. I gave them the equity for doing business with me.
Wow, that's amazing.
So I sent $50 million out to my customers and my employees when I sold.
Wow.
So in 2015, I put the business for sale and I went and presented to 8 potential buyers that were selling products and services into the market I was managing for these independent businesses. And my sales pitch is, I'm Brandon Dawson. I have a $35 million company. Everybody knew who I was, by the way. I'm Brandon Dawson, $35 million of revenue, $2.3 million in EBITDA. If you buy me within 36 months, I'm going to add $2 billion of incremental value to your business, and I want 10%. That was my sales pitch. Mm-hmm. And my bankers, they're all going to laugh you out.
Yeah. Like, why are we buying this company that's making $2 million and
for 200 million?
Yeah,
it was a joke.
Yeah. So how did you sell it? Like what? Who saw
Remember
the
that
value?
first presentation where I asked a question and I made it somebody else's idea to raise my first million?
Yeah.
I learned something in that presentation.
Okay.
So now I'm presenting to Siemens Healthcare. I'm presenting to real companies, and that was my pitch. And what did they all say? Did they say, you're an idiot, you're crazy, no one would ever pay you that? What do you think was the only question all 8 asked?
Like how?
Great, thanks for asking.
Yeah.
It was their idea again.
Yeah.
So what I teach business owners to do is not go in and throw up on everybody. Let it be somebody else's idea. Mm-hmm. And here's the other thing. Present your business case in a way where everyone wants to prove you wrong. Think about it. No, like when you're presenting your business case, nobody believes you're going to be able to do it. The statistics are, so why go in and use blunt force to try to pitch your deal?
Yeah.
Let them think they're going to prove you wrong and then show them how you engineered it.
Yeah.
So that's what I did. It turned into an hour presentation. Here's how many locations you have globally. Here's how many you have in North America. Here's how many I have in North America. Here's my average sales. Here's how you answer your phones. Here's how you set appointments. Here's how many employees you have per operation. Here's how pathetic your operations are. Here's what you charge for products. Here's what I charge for products. And if you took what I did and put it on top of what you had, your business would grow by 5 or 8 times.
So were these businesses, I mean, like were things like EOS out yet?
Yeah.
Okay. So like, at that point, you're basically just selling them an operating system and saying, hey, you got all these locations that are mismanaged essentially. And if you buy us, our current staff of 1,000 people will now manage yours.
192.
Or 109, you had 1,000 locations. But like, we'll now use your staff to do your businesses and make them more efficient.
We'll deploy into your businesses and make them more efficient.
Got it. Okay. And
we'll just add you to our hub.
Yeah. To me, it makes perfect sense why you sold for what you sold.
Exactly. 8 presentation, I had 8 offers.
Really?
And I ran it up to what I reported was a $151 million transaction, but it was actually 188.
So can you say how that happened?
No, but I can tell you that we overachieved. So the business that bought us was worth $1 billion. They had been trading at $17 a share for 36 months, flat, never moved. They took so much heat from the other 7 bidders, but the other 7 bidders tried to buy us too.
Yep.
But we took that stock from $17 by working as a global team with their team out of Denmark. And within 36 months, it was $94. We added $3.5 billion. It was a $4.5 billion company when my contract was up.
Wow. So they paid you $188 billion or million, and you made them over $3 billion from it. So,
and it was a great experience.
Yeah.
It was a different experience for me because I had to go back to the employee hat.
Yeah, because now they acquired you. You work for them.
Yeah, and so I deployed in 8 countries working with the leadership team out of Denmark, and it was actually really a fun time, and they were great people. So,
well, and I'm sure that first experience you had where you got outed prepared you to like actually listen this time and like.
I would say, so I'm a believer, and I help business owners do this. You know, we're all conditioned from our past experiences, so we have this present belief system. That's just not a reality, but it's from all our failures and what people project on us and what we read and hear and being conformed by schools and parents and churches and government. So, you know, it's like don't think for yourself, just get in line, do what we tell you to do. And we've been conditioned by that, and then we try to break out of that. We have failures or successes, and that imprints on us. So all our actions today are based on all that imprinting.
Yeah.
And all that really has nothing to do with your capacity or abilities for the future. So the way you break I teach in my book exactly how I broke out of my present self and went 10 years out and programmed my brain and then brought it back to every decision I'm making right now. Is it moving me to that, or is it moving me away from it? And I really break down in my book how I formulated this exact strategy.
When is the book coming out?
It's coming out September 19th.
September
you can
19th.
pre-order it right now. You just go to figuremindset.com and you can pre-order it now.
Okay.
It's been number 1 on the pre-order list, I don't know, for like 4 weeks now.
Okay. So ninefiguremindset.com. We will link to that down below. So you work with these guys. Obviously, it's just this massive win-win. You know, you make a bunch of money.
Dude, I was sitting, they asked me to go to the management meeting they were doing in Spain. So my wife and I flew over there, and we're sitting in the hotel, and I'd been floating around on a pool floaty because the deal was supposed to close that day. And I got a text from my CFO. It says there's a problem.
Okay.
So I jump out of the pool, and they said, you need to sign all these documents, a new series of documents in order for the wire to hit in 30 minutes. And they send me in my email, there's like 100 attachments.
You're like, I can't even read all these.
So I go over to the pool bar guy and I said, can I call the front desk? I'm like, do you have a printer here?
Yeah.
This is what my wife's half my age.
Yeah.
She goes, you're an idiot. Let me help you out here. She took the iPad. She set it up so I could digitally sign everything. So I sat there just pushing as fast as I could 100 times. It was like,
Did you even read it?
No. I wanted that money. So because they said if we don't close now, we might not be able to close for,
Okay.
So I signed everything, got it off 1 minute before wire.
Wow.
And I got a phone call. It says everything made it in. So we go up to the room because we're going to go to dinner, and I'm laying on the bed and I'm staring at my Morgan Stanley app, and I'm refreshing.
How much was it?
Refreshing it. It's not coming. I'm getting more and more like freaked out, right? And all of a sudden, ding! $56 million wired in my account. That was the initial wire.
Wow.
And I was just like, I can't tell you. You think you're going to like jump out of the bed and be like, oh my God. I set my phone down and I just sat there and I took a deep breath and I was like, I don't feel anything.
Yeah, I'm still here.
It was almost like a non-event for me. It's almost like it didn't happen. And then all of a sudden I got sad. I sold my company.
Yeah.
I'm an employee. I got to live with somebody else's rules.
Wow.
And so that was a hard transition at first, but I went back to the training I had done and I set my intention statements. And one of my intention statements was, I will be the single best employee anybody's ever hired. Like, and every time I was in a boardroom or I was in a company meeting or I wanted to fucking pop my cork, I would just say that to myself.
Wow.
This is the power of intention statements. I would remind myself of my purpose.
Wow.
And my obligation. And so it was phenomenal. I just made it through that. But then they called me one day and they said, hey, you did in 3 years what we thought would never happen. Just become a floating person for us to do private deals, confidential stuff,
type
come
stuff.
work with the CEO and the CFO on strategic things. But you can do whatever you want now. That was in the end of 2018. And so in 17, I started kind of like, okay, this gig's done. And now 18, it was like, all right, now we are done. It just officially became done. And I actually hit a lower point than when I had to restart my company because I realized I didn't have a purpose anymore.
Wow.
I'm out running around with my billionaire friends, buying shit, golfing, eating every night, gaining 40 pounds, having a good time. We were always flying to Europe and stuff. This went on for like 2 years, and I realized I have entirely lost my purpose. I had done 20 years of research, and I was driving, and now guess what? I had $100 million, and I was asking myself the question, do I really want to grind the rest of my life? And I couldn't answer that question. And my wife, who's half my age, was so excited about the things we did. She was like,
She's like, this is great.
well, no, she was like, she just got back from London School of Economics. She's like, I joined you to build. If you're not building,
we got problems.
I'm not certain
Yeah.
we're going to be together. So there was a lot of couple years, man. And one night I was coming back from Cabo. We have a home in Cabo, and she and I were flying back. I started writing down what my goals were. And what I was doing now.
Yeah.
And I just like pulling over to the side of the road, I just busted out crying. So here I am, all this money in the bank, and I'm at a lower point because I was giving up on my dreams.
Wow.
I wasn't being the person I could be.
Right.
And that got us talking about how do we go achieve this together. And she started looking at social media guys. And I had no social media, zero presence. I had a team of 200. I had 68 marketing people. We ran social media for thousands of locations. They had been trying since 2010 to get me to launch a show called Business with Brandon. I wouldn't do it.
Yep.
Dumbest mistake I ever made.
Right.
Not shooting content. I had studios. I had talent.
Well, it'd have been so amazing, too, to see you do what you just told.
Good news is I shot all the content. It was just on an internal system. So we are starting to release circa Brandon 2008, 2009,
do a little
2010.
documentary.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So she had recommended these social media guys because they had reach and relationships. And I was trying to figure out how do I go to these thousands of verticals and help people when nobody knows who I am.
Right.
So she landed on Grant. So she showed me a video of Grant, and he had his hat on sideways, and he was running in front of his airplane going, hey, Grant Cardone. And I laughed, and I said, all these social media people are so full of shit.
Yeah.
I can't have anything to do
I
with
run
that.
real business.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ego, man. I tell you, the worst thing is intellectual ignorance, intellectual arrogance. It's a kiss of death for every business owner.
Wow.
And she goes, you know what pisses you off about him is that everybody knows him.
Yeah.
And nobody knows you.
And you know you're smarter, more talented, and
Dude, that
nobody knows you.
You know how pissed off I got when she said that to me? I was like, who are you? I'm worth $100 million.
Yeah.
Who are you to tell me that I'm pissed off because everybody knows him and nobody knows me? Like, who are you?
Yeah.
And she looked right at me. My wife's a tough one. She looked and she goes, your wife who wants you to achieve your goals, you're going to listen to his book. I'm not listening to his book. We had a whole fight.
Yeah.
She made me listen to it. And then 10 minutes into it, I'm like, this guy knows what he's talking about. That was in 2018.
Wow.
So we went to the 2019 Growth Conference.
Okay. I was at 2018 was my first Growth Con and introduction to Grant.
Got it. And that was in Vegas?
Vegas, yep.
Yeah, so this one was when he was saying he's going to get 35,000 people tomorrow on stage. I'm like, bullshit, man. Super Bowl weekend. This guy's such a bullshitter, but I'm going to go to find out. So there was 5 things when we went there that I wanted to know.
Okay.
First thing, is it the real deal? Second thing, is the audience that goes to his events the type of business owners I'd done research on?
Yeah.
Third thing, does he and Elena really work together? Because Natalie and I wanted to work together, and we thought if they worked together, they'd be a good example.
Yeah.
Fourth thing, the things he offers, do I slot into those things and complement it, or do I compete against it?
Mm-hmm.
And the most important thing for me was the fifth thing. See, when I was 26 years old, one of my mentors that gave me that first $6 million, John Strauss, he started talking to me about money and making money and becoming wealthy because he was wealthy. And he says, look, Warren Buffett at 27 years old finally became worth $10 million.
Mm-hmm.
He said at 47 years old, he was worth $75 million. But at 53 years old, he was worth $350 million. Well, I never got those thoughts out of my mind. Guess what? I was getting those trading certificates saying I was worth $10 million at 27.
Yeah.
Problem was at 31, I was back to zero. I sold my business when I was 45, 46 years old. They wired $100 million in my account when it was all said and done.
Right.
I hit the Warren Buffett number at 47, but I had a new problem.
Purpose.
How the fuck am I gonna be worth $350 million?
Yeah.
At 53.
Essentially starting over.
I had zero vision.
Yeah.
I knew all these businesses I engineered. I knew what the market was in the SME space. I knew I could help them, but it was like, how do I go to market and how do I do it so fast? And so the fifth thing is do I believe Grant's the kind of guy that with everything he's doing, he could help me figure out how to create a $350 million net worth by 53 years old?
Now, let me ask you a question. So you're getting ready to go to this event. You're obviously extremely skeptical of Grant. There's a lot of emotions, jealousy, whatever, right? Because I've seen this before many times, especially even, I'm not nearly on the level of Grant or anything else, but people are like, dude, that fool, I do way more business than him and whatever. Why are people listening to his advice? And it's just like, well, go make videos. Don't freaking whine about it. Like, go be about it. And so, that's one thing. And it's interesting to say because like I have a lot of friends in circles who don't like Grant at all. And they're all they're 9-figure, true 9-figure net worth entrepreneurs who no one knows. And I'm like, why are you hating on them? Like, it's just, are you mad that no one knows that you built this thing and you've got all this wealth? Like, it was the same question Natalie said. And it's a tough pill to swallow because when you're that successful and other people are getting more praise than you, who you deem as not as successful, it's a hard pill. But you go anyway. You say, screw it, put emotions aside. Did you have it in your mind that you wanted to potentially partner with him? Or were you just going like, can I learn something here and like get inspired to go build my own thing?
No, by the time I went with the intention that if I saw those 5 things, he was going to be my partner.
Okay, so you already knew going in. He didn't even know who you were.
Nobody knew who we were.
Yeah.
I bought the tickets, $35,000 tickets on the internet.
You're like, I just got to get the best ticket.
Didn't take a phone call. They thought it was all fake. When I showed up, they're like, you're real. Because I wouldn't talk to anybody.
We thought we were going to get a chargeback.
Didn't want anybody. They thought it was a theft. Yeah. They thought it was a scam. And I intentionally set my seats right at the second row front stage because they poked out so that we were front and center. And I'm smart enough to know that if some dude drops 35 grand and shows up, nobody knows who they are. They're going to want to know who they are.
Yeah. Like he's going to hit you up for Cardone Capital.
I've done enough events. Right. And I went there to observe and take notes and see what I could learn.
Yeah.
First day, I checked all 5 boxes.
That
quick. Everything I went there to see, I'm like, check. The people our meeting were amazing. Think about it. If I run into you and I didn't know you and I'm there and you're telling me you got a business as big as yours and you're doing these things, I'm like, why are you here with Grant Cardone? Oh, he's an inspiration. He's teaching us how to do it. We invest with him. Like I just heard over and over from every kind of business owner that was in my research.
Yeah.
Plumbers, landscapers, architects, lawyers, accountants, medical people, every kind of business that is in my research was there.
Yeah.
And I was just like, oh my God, I've never been anywhere where and 35,000 people were there. I thought, oh, this guy's full of shit. They were there.
Yeah.
Then I watched him. I watched his promotion, but his work ethic. I mean, I was just like, this guy's insane. And then seeing him with his family, I'm like, okay, they're together. And seeing Elena and Natalie and I were just like, check, 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 check. I took more notes in 3 days than I had taken at anything. And the most beautiful part was, remember, one of the requirements was, do I compliment or conflict?
Mm-hmm.
He was the marketing and sales guy, and he brought everybody else on stage to teach everything else.
With ops. He didn't have any ops guys.
No leadership, no ops. So he brings John Maxwell. And John Maxwell and I are best friends. So we go to dinner the night before, and John's like, why are you here, Brandon?
Yeah, you know, he's like,
why are you? Because he used to come in 2009, 10, 11, 12. He was coming to my events with 2,000 people.
Yeah.
Long before Grant ever. This is another thing, right? Like, if you would have met Brandon Dawson, in fact, my president used to be in the car space, said, hey, this guy wrote this book in 2011. We should have him come speak. I go, he's a car guy.
Yeah.
Here I am running a business where I got almost 200 employees. If you would have looked at Grant and I in 2013, he was still kind of up and coming, and I was a guy that was worth tens of millions and already established, and all the authors knew me. And then all of a sudden you look at Grant in 2019, like I'm irrelevant and everybody knows Grant.
Yeah.
So what kind of idiot wouldn't want to understand what I did wrong versus what he did right?
Yeah. How was he so far behind back then? And yet
blew me away.
Yeah.
And here's the thing with your friends you talk to that are 9-figure, they're not willing to ask that question. They're not willing to look at the hard, cold facts and say, what have I not done that somebody else was able to do that I could learn from?
Right.
Because they're wealthy enough that they let intellectual ignorance and arrogance rule how they think. So,
or they just don't have purpose. They're just
or they're happy.
Yeah,
like I'm not taking that
I'm
away
done,
from anybody.
Whatever. Well, I don't even know. Like, I don't know. You said it before of like, well, I was golfing, I was vacating, but I got bored. I was just like, there's no purpose behind that. You could have all the money in the world, but you don't build huge wealth by just chilling. You build it because you have purpose. You like to work. You like to grind. And, you know, it's just like, that's why Warren Buffett still works today. It's why Grant
100%.
still works today.
Yep.
You know, it'd be bored. I don't know what they would do.
So now I had a new problem, which is how does Grant know who I am?
Right.
Funny enough, John Maxwell, when he was done speaking, pulled me up on the side of the stage with Natalie. Totally didn't know he was going to do that. He brought Grant over, and Grant's like, everyone's cheering, and there's 35,000 people, and we're side stage now, and the security's coming towards us, and John's trying to get us to jump over the rope and go backstage. And I'm like, John, great job. Like,
yeah,
I'm not going back there. We went back and sat down. Well, I guess Grant asked him, because John texted me afterwards. Grant asked him, what was that about? And John says, I wanted to introduce you to those two people. And then John told me, he told him, if you get a chance to meet those two, anything they tell you is the truth.
Mm.
And a day later, we ran into Grant in the stadium, and he's like, I wanted to meet you guys.
Yeah.
And we're like, cool. So we were playing it cool because we knew we were home, and I wanted to make sure he saw me as somebody that he would want to partner with.
Right.
So on the third day, we stepped in and take a picture. Natalie first. We broke up so that we get 2 shots at it.
Yeah.
Natalie stepped in. He's like, man, I want to meet you guys. I want to meet you guys. And then I stepped in. He's like, I want to meet you guys. I said, well, we're going to be at the real estate summit this weekend. And he's like, oh, awesome. There'll only be a couple hundred people there. We started talking there. And
you're not a real estate guy. You're just wanting to meet him.
I have real estate, but
okay.
it's not my thing.
Yeah. You were going there just to meet.
Well, I was going there to invest too, because I have all this cash.
Oh yeah.
I have real estate, but I didn't have any multi-family, and I'm not passionate about real estate like he is.
Right.
So I was like, maybe we could invest with him too and build a relationship. So a week later, they're on the plane and they're in Nevada. We're in my place in Palm Desert with my daughter, and it's pouring down rain. Or they're in Utah, and I guess they decided, hey, we don't want to be in the snow. We're bailing. We're going to Cabo. So we see him post.
Yeah.
Now we're kind of stalking him, and so I had Ryan's number because I had talked about investing in Cardone Capital. I said, hey, you guys going down to Cabo? Where are you staying? He goes, I don't know. I'll text you back. He goes, we're staying at the Palmilla, the one and only. We rented a home. I own a home in the Palmilla at the one and only.
Oh, do you?
So
I thought you were going to tell me you owned an El Dorado or Chileno.
No, I do own Chileno too.
Oh, do you?
I'm 20 years. I'm one of the guys who put the money up to buy it.
Wow.
So I send my golf cart, tequila, I have my house manager take the bikes, everything down. So when Grant shows up, my house manager meets Grant. He's like, "Oh, you with the people that own the house?" He's like, "No, I'm with Mr. Brandon Dawson. He wanted to send all this to you."
Wow.
So then Grant's posting, driving around my golf cart. "Thanks, Brandon." So no shit, I'm sitting in Palm Desert with my wife and my daughter, and it's pouring down rain, and it's President's Weekend, and I'm like, "Why are we here?"
Yeah, we're going to Cabo.
So I call 5 different. I look at all the airlines. It's President's Weekend. There isn't one flight to Cabo.
Yeah.
So we're stuck. And I'm pissed. So I happen to be a member of a great club down there called Bighorn Golf Club. I'd been there. I'm there now 22 years. I walk in the front. We have a lot of billionaires. I walk in and I tell the girl at the front desk, if anybody will put me on their plane and fly me down to Cabo now, I'll pay their dues next year. And the dues are a lot more than the flight down to Cabo.
Is that's not Discovery, is it? Bighorn?
No,
Yeah.
it's not.
Okay.
No. But it is one of the best clubs in the globe.
Yeah.
I'm just telling you.
We're going to have to golf. I didn't know you were golfing.
Yeah, let's do it, man.
Yeah.
So she called me back an hour later.
Okay.
Mr. Hubbard, you can use his plane.
Wow.
They fly me down. Next thing you know, we're 5 days. I take them to Chileno, and we hung out every day at Chileno.
Oh, and I'm sure you guys had a blast. out
Unbelievable.
there,
Put them on my buddy's 100-foot yacht. We went and sailed. We talked. And I took a piece of paper out and said, here's what you do. You do real estate, investment thesis over here, real estate. You do sales and marketing. Let me show you 12 years of research on what I build. There's 10 elements to building and scaling a business. Starts with strategy, then it goes to marketing, then it goes to sales, then it goes to people, then it goes to finance, then it goes to operations, then it goes to leadership, then it goes to data, then it goes to technology systems, and then it goes to investment thesis. You're an expert on number 10, investment thesis relative to real estate, and you're an expert in sales and marketing, and the other 7 is my expertise. And if we put it together, you'll never have anybody else talking or selling at your events. It'll be our events.
Yeah.
Everybody that comes through, we will manage them, we will help them grow and scale, and we will partner with them. And he's like, dude, I've wanted to do this my whole life, but I don't believe it's actually doable.
Oh.
Says, what is it going to take to convince you otherwise? He said, come speak to my event and see if anybody cares.
So he didn't believe that his audience would want it.
Yeah. He believed the audience would want it. He didn't believe somebody could do it. It's complicated to do all 10 of those things.
Right. But you had already sold your company for
as he's like, what'd you sell your company for? 77 times EBITDA, 151 million. And then took a $1 billion company to 4.5. He's like, those are pretty good creds.
That's a good pitch.
And I did it innovating the SME space by doing shared equity pools, innovated a lot of different things. And they said, and I have all this research if you care to look at it. And I've built the technology, and I own the technology. I built it in a separate company. So when I sold my business, they didn't get it.
You kept it.
So I said, I am ready to go. And he's like, all right, let's test it. So I did my first revenue June of 19.
Okay.
Presented to a little boot camp. Did my first revenue in June of 19. Did 200,000 in June of 19.
Okay.
Then COVID hit, and I did 680,000 in June of 20.
Yep.
This is where having a great partner. I'm like, dude, everything's live events. We're shut down. He's like, write an ebook on how to save your business, because you know you're a business expert. So I wrote a book called The Emergency Business Response: What to Do in an Emergency or Crisis.
Yeah.
In business. He said, set up different cameras, get rid of some of your administrative staff, hire some camera guys, and just start doing topics on different parts of the business. I did that. We had 38,000 downloads on the book.
Mm-hmm.
So June was almost all revenue of just brand new customers coming into the ecosystem. We did
From the book,
we did 680,000.
Yep.
So I did 2.5 million in 5 months in 2019. Then we did 14 million in 2020.
Mm-hmm.
June of 21, because that's kind of my starting year, so I look at it each year. June of 21, I did 2.2 million. We ended up doing 38 million in 21.
Wow. June
of 22, I did 4.4 million, and we did 83 million in revenue in 22. And June of this year, I did 13 million.
Wow.
And we have a full-time staff at Cardone Ventures, and our companies we own. So when I talk about portfolio companies, those are our clients' companies. I don't count any revenue in that.
Yeah.
But we are spinning off companies like 10X Health.
Yep.
I acquired that business. I put 2 businesses together, bought Gary Brecka. We own 80% of that business. And so that I count that as my business, right? Because I'm the CEO, my wife's the president of it.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
We had Gary here maybe 6 months ago, and love Gary. I've been a user of 10X Health, and we've done some cool things there. So I contributed a little bit towards your revenue.
That's good.
But I knew that obviously Cardone. I didn't realize Ventures was why Health got acquired and launched. But I would guess too, most of the businesses aren't being launched under like the 10X brand, right?
Well, I'm launching. I created a whole portfolio of 10X. Like we're launching in a week and a half. We're launching 10X Insurance.
Got it.
We're launching 10X Wealth Management.
Got it.
We're launching 10X HVAC. We already launched that. We have $500 million HVAC businesses we are working with.
So when you say you launched 10X HVAC, is that buying their business, rebranding it, and franchising it, or how's that working?
It's literally we go and we run them through the education, and then they hire us to engineer their business, and then they hire us to manage their business, and then we partner with them. And so when I talk about in that deal funnel, there's $500 million of businesses we've already structurally partnered with. There's about 100 million, and it's growing every single day because the pipeline's so big. But it is my intention to create the single largest HVAC entity, shared ownership amongst those owners with Grant and I, doing it just like I did in audiology in the marketplace.
Do they rebrand or they keep?
No, they become a member of or a partner of.
Okay.
There's just no reason when somebody's been in a market and they've already been successful to switch their brand out.
So 10X becomes, would you say in these partnership deals, are you a minority partner, majority?
It's entirely relative. There are many of them where we're a majority.
Okay.
We're also deploying capital for growth.
Yep.
So where we go and acquire a business in partnership with a partner, we're the majority, they're the minority. It's, I have a saying, which is collaboration is the new currency. A lot of people, they want to be in charge or they want to have majority, but they don't know shit about structuring businesses.
Yeah.
I'm a structural expert.
Yeah.
And you can own 1% of something and have control of it. So if control is your agenda, there's a way to structure it.
Yeah.
You can have 99% of something and somebody else can control it.
Yeah.
So 51% doesn't mean shit.
Yeah.
But people just work with small accountants and
that's the only way to structure it.
They just don't know. I
Yeah.
mean, there's so much non-knowingness out there.
So you guys are going to launch these different verticals basically that are underneath Cardone Ventures, essentially.
That's right.
So Cardone Ventures is the brand. So basically,
Cardone Ventures is the holdco.
It's the
holding
holdco.
company.
It's the brand.
Grant and I. So I just said, Grant, I'll make it easy. We'll go 50-50.
Okay.
I've got to be the managing partner. It's all my IP.
Yep.
And I'll never have a boss. That was one of the things I committed to myself a long time ago.
Yeah.
So I'm the partner. I'm the managing partner. I make the decisions.
So you have control.
I do have control.
Okay.
Outside of 6 specific things that if I was a partner with somebody, I wouldn't want them to be able to do it unless I agreed. Things like diluting the company, selling it, things like that. And so he was like, dude, let's do it, right? And so when you see us, because I've integrated significantly with CTTI, which is the training business.
Okay.
So you have real estate, you have sales and marketing training, and then you have ventures.
Yeah.
That's our business.
Okay.
He and I are 50-50. He's 100% of training, and he's 100% of Cardone Capital, real estate.
Yep.
But I'm the second largest investor besides Grant in capital. So Grant and I own more of capital than anybody else.
Yeah.
So needless to say, in 5 years, we become best friends and significant business partners. I mean, this guy, imagine you partner with somebody and you're uncertain of what that relationship's going to look like, because to the external world, if they don't know him as a human being, right? He's this animated figure.
Yep.
And they don't know how serious he is and how dedicated he is to his family or to the business or how strategic he is.
Yeah.
This guy's a beast.
Yep.
So remember, my target was, I sat down with him when we were partnering. He says, what's the thing you need from me? I said, somebody needs to show me how to be worth $350 million. We just had ventures valued because we did $34 million of EBITDA last year. We're going to do $46 million of EBITDA this year.
Wow.
We're worth $560 million because every company we work with, we do a 5 different valuation methodology every single year, because why would you build a business if you're not intentionally building it to value?
Right.
You're going to make different decisions than how much income do I make?
Yeah.
And so that coupled with my net worth, with what's happened in my real estate portfolios and everything else, today I'm worth about $390 million. So Grant has
He got you there.
He got me there.
Yeah.
And this is what I try to tell business owners. We're 5 times bigger in 4 years today in this company. 5 times bigger in size and value than it took me 14 years to do it by myself. So I have a saying, which is collaboration is the new currency. Why would you ever want to do anything alone if you can collaborate and win with other people, but have an impact that multiplies so big and it's easier?
Yeah.
Because you have more people doing more things, helping out, and you got higher flow of opportunity because we're all going out and getting new relationships and bringing them into our ecosystem and running them through the 10 things.
So one thing I want to bring up to edify what you're saying is, like I said, my story of really interacting with Grant was, I went to 10X in 2018, like I said, and, I was a nobody. I was just flipping houses and, doing well. And, fast forward to, man, when would it have been? 2021, I start to get some fame on social media and my businesses are doing really well. And I have my first podcast interview with Grant. And so it's virtual and, it's our first time really talking. Then in 2022, we get I'm trying to think.
The Unbreakable Business Challenge.
Yeah, I think it actually might have happened before that.
It was November 21, and then you came into the offices in January 22.
Okay, so I ended up going to that and like meeting you, meeting Grant, meeting the whole team for the first time. And I'm like, wow, these guys are, number one, what they say they are, like you were saying. Number two, like way nicer, friendlier, like, the things you said about Grant of being like just fun and like caring. Like, I don't want to say he's different on social media than he is in person, but like you can see like he is very genuine with his desire to help people, right? And then I just see like, man, dude, like these guys are actually doing what they say of, hey, we want to help people, we want to collaborate, we want to do all these things. And that was the whole point of, the January event. Well, fast forward a year later, he ends up coming here to my office to, film his TV show, Real Estate King. And then we do a podcast right here. Then Gary shows up to my office and we do a podcast and I'm working with 10X Health. Then somebody else from the team calls me about doing a TV show. So we just finished filming a TV show in LA. 10X was here, or GrowthCon was here, whatever last time. Go and hang out backstage with you guys. You're here right now. And it's just like, and then I saw Grant again, maybe like 2 months ago when I was in Florida filming for his podcast. And just, we sat and talked in his office for like an hour and a half just about.
Nobody gets access.
Nobody.
They pay him $200,000 to have 4 1-hour meetings.
Yeah.
So for him to spend any time means he likes you.
Yeah.
And it's because you supported what we were doing. We built a relationship. You're now a known entity and you're a friend.
Yeah.
And I think this is, people want to know, how do I get in that circle? Well, you got to show up.
Yeah.
John Maxwell says, if you want to ask for a hand, you have to give one first.
Yes.
And most people want the hand.
Yeah.
They don't want to give anything up.
Right.
For me, I wrote a check for $35,000 and then gave him $1 million and said, hey, I trust you.
Yep.
And then he's like, all right, well, if you trust me, I got to give you an opportunity.
Yeah.
And then I came in and he has watched what we built. And our organizations, Cardone Capital was $250 million raised when I partnered with him. Today is over $1.1 billion with $4.5 billion of assets. Cardone Training's 5 times bigger than what it was after we partnered. And Cardone Ventures from a startup is twice the size of Cardone Training was. So we've created an empire together just in the business side. We're doing collectively almost $375 million in run rate right now. We'll be my goal is to take that to $1 billion of revenue in the next 36 months. Grant's going to take the real estate portfolio from $1 billion raised to, we want to have 10 billion raised.
Yeah, he wants 40 billion. That's what he's told me.
That's right. And when I partnered with him, it was 10 billion. Yeah. And I wanted a $10 billion management company portfolio.
Yeah.
Because of what we've already done together, we both revised that.
Yep.
He's revised the 40 when we were on the yacht. We're 50 billion each. We're going to create $100 billion Cardone group.
Got it. of real
between
estate and
business and real estate. We are going to take on the giants.
Yep.
And that's our starting point. Because until we're 100 billion, it's like we're not even real when you think of Blackstone and those guys.
Right.
So look, we're going to innovate. One of the things I'm doing right now after 4 years of working on it is innovating how finance works for the SME, the small business space. It's a $12 trillion space. I want to bring to those small businesses how to almost like a public company capability.
Yeah.
So we're creating a private stock exchange. We'll have businesses listed on it. They'll be able to access capital. They'll be able to use stock options and warrants to incent team members. They'll be able to behave like bigger companies, and we're going to decentralize the power of the bigger companies and give it to the entrepreneur. For example, we're launching for the first time ever into the small business space. You know how hard it is for those guys or gals to get health insurance?
Yeah. It's a big
and
deal.
how much they have to pay and the hoops they have to go through and the shitty product they actually get. We're launching our 10X insurance. I've worked with my friends in the insurance space, billions of dollars of companies, and they help me create a product that if you're part of our 10X community, you're getting healthcare.
Wow.
You get the same amazing healthcare my employees get. If you're one person working by yourself, or if you have a team of 500.
Wow.
We're launching that program in 3 weeks. We're also, if you work with us and you're in construction, there's surety bonds. So you can go bid bigger projects. If you're in the life insurance or health insurance, you can bid bigger transactions because you can attach to our surety bonds. Because what I'm doing is creating leverage and economies of scale for the small business owner that they would never get until they're big, which means private equity gets to come along and pick them off along the way for cheap and then add them to their portfolio and instantaneously open up their marketplace. So if we know that's where value creation is, and it doesn't go to the small business owner who sells their business for 4 to 6 times EBITDA, and private equity is building businesses and trading them at 30, 40, 50 times EBITDA, why not just bypass the middleman, create the resources for the small business, let them attach to Grant and I, share in the upside because they're winning and we're winning, and collaborate into a massively huge enterprise where everyone gets wealthy and has the same structural incentives that big companies have to find top talent, to develop top talent, and to crush it in their marketplace so they can grow and scale and create massive value across those 10 elements. That's the vision. That's what we're executing to, and it's exploding because the marketplace appreciates that.
Yeah, dude, I love that. Like, even hearing of creating a new stock exchange, I was like, what? Like, that's crazy. I've never heard that part of the story.
Well, because nobody has. This is the first podcast because on my strategic roadmap, it's been confidential all the way up, but we're announcing to our clients on Monday in Dallas that this is now something that we're rolling out over the next 3 or 4 months. I've been working on it for years.
There, you heard it first, guys. You heard it first. So let me touch on a few things you said. Number one, like, to your point of going back to collaboration and adding value, like when I had my meeting with Grant the last time I was in Miami, like I said, we filmed this podcast and I was like, all right, cool. I'm sure he's busy. He's got stuff to do. He's like, come to the office. I'm like, all right. And like, I didn't know what he wanted to talk about or anything, but we sat there talking for about an hour and a half. And the number one thing he talked about was collaboration. It wasn't like, hey, Ryan, give me money. It wasn't like, hey, Ryan, do this or that. He was like, what can we do? Like, I know you're coming up and, I know we can do a ton of stuff together. How do we make money together? And that was the whole conversation. There was no pitch. There was nothing. And like, who knows where it's going to lead to in the next 5-10 years. But you guys are doing the same thing now with these business owners where it's like, dude, they have no resources. Like, yeah, there's EOS. There's all these systems out there that they can
And
do.
Gino's a great dude. I've had shot some podcasts with him, but even EOS sold. And the FTC cracked them because they didn't build the business right. This is why the number one most important of the 10 elements is strategy. If you can go build businesses, but if you strategically build them wrong, you're going to end up failing, not because the business doesn't work, but because you didn't do it right.
What did the FTC, like, what was the problem with
that? Well,
them?
they were a licensee program and they violated franchise law.
Got it.
So you should know that before you even start your damn business. This is
strategy.
why people hire us.
That's step one.
This is why people, but you know what? 94% or 93% of all business owners. You notice all these stats in the small business space are all in the 90s.
Yeah.
3% only make it past 10 years. Come on, that's a horrible statistic. 92% family owned. It devastates the family when the business fails. But also, I think it was 89% when we surveyed the business owners and asked, why'd you get in business? It wasn't because they wanted to be an entrepreneur and build something big and create net worth. It's because they didn't want a job. They didn't want to be told what to do. They didn't want a limitation on their earnings ability. They didn't want to be held accountable. So they started their own job. And that's why 25 million out of 31.5 million work by themselves, because they don't even want to hold themselves accountable for doing something. So small businesses stay small because the thinking is small.
Yeah.
And when they become big, because the thinking decides to become big, they run into the technical aspect of the 10 elements.
Yeah.
And that's not in their wheelhouse. That's right. And they get advice from every one of the wrong people.
One thing I'll say is every time, and even just we're an hour in, the hour of this conversation, I'm already like, things already in the back of my mind, like, okay, what are we about to go change? Because this is too small. This is like, I didn't even consider that idea. We need to execute that. And every time I've ever hung out with Grant, the same thing happened. So it's like, to your point, you have to start off like getting around bigger thinkers, number one. And then once you have like a bigger vision, it becomes, okay, well, how do you execute it? And it's your 10-step framework, which is what you're talking about. So when somebody comes to Cardone Ventures, they say, hey, you know what? I want to hire you guys, right? So first they're coming in for systems and education.
Well, they'll come to an education event.
Okay.
A boot camp, real estate.
How many of those boot camps do you guys run a year?
We do 108 events a year. We did 6 boot camps this year, 2 real estate programs, a growth conference, and then a ton of micro programs.
What are so like the majority of them are the micro programs?
Yeah. Because the framework I brought to Grant is they were doing sales and marketing. That's what their expertise was. But we added people workshops, finance workshops, leadership workshops, operational workshops, mindset workshops.
It's a very niche type events.
It's those across those 10 elements.
Okay, got it.
And then if your business is $1 million, you're probably trapped at 3 million or less. And I have engineered the break points up to 125 million and then to $1 billion. And there's 7 break points from startup to get to 125 million. And just like gravity, there's 2 or 3 things in each break point that if you don't have in place, you will slip back. And if you go up too fast, you'll do a snapback, which is 2 break points or more, and it's devastating. It'll put you out of business.
I remember when you were giving this presentation.
Exactly.
So Unbreakable. Yep.
So when you engineer the business properly, think of a 10-story building. If you started out thinking it was 2 stories and you keep stacking on it, it's going to collapse. At some point.
Yeah.
And so what we do is we make sure those businesses don't collapse. So if someone comes to one of our top of the funnel, they hear that conversation, they're like, oh shit, I'm at 5 million and I see the structural cracks.
Yep.
So then they come to like a 360. They spend 2 days and they engineer their business against all the data.
Okay.
And they realize there's 35 things they needed to have in place, and we help identify the first 3 to 5 they need to go home and do right now, and then their businesses grow 30 to 100% within like 6 months, and they're like, oh my God, everything in my life changed. And then they just keep coming back to all of our different programs.
So they come to the micro events because like, oh, I need to work on this now.
I need to work on marketing. I need to work on sales. I need to work on people. I need to work on finance. I need to work on...
Got it.
Right? Because and then they realize, wait a minute, it isn't a thing. Building a business is not a thing.
Yep.
It's a system.
Yeah.
And it's a process. And the process changes when you get to 3 million to go to 8.
Yeah.
But if you keep doing the same things, definition of insanity, if you just keep doing the same thing over and over and over, you're going to stay exactly where you're at. But the implication of that is your employees every year expect more money. The government's taxing you more. Your cost of whatever you're delivering is going up incrementally.
Yep.
And your rent goes up every year.
Yep.
And so even if you made money 3 or 4 years ago, if you stay where you're at, that's why flat is death.
Yep.
Eventually there's this crossroads where you're no longer making any money. You're the owner. You've given all your money up to keep everybody happy. And now you're really stuck because you can't invest in the growth of the future, and you become a pessimist. And because belief is the catalyst to everything. The higher you believe, higher you achieve. When your belief gets lower, your activities go down and your leadership goes down. So decline is the gravity that happens when you give up the belief about what's possible.
So you got to always have vision. Somebody has to always be thinking bigger and pushing forward, or you will die.
And this is the genius that I have learned, that my partner is the best in the world.
He's just always innovating, thinking of something crazy.
That son of a bitch. We will blow numbers away, and he's like, can you imagine celebrating going from 200,000 a month 48 months later to 13 million? And he looks at you and says, that just means there's 130 million a month waiting for you to figure out how to get good.
He's gonna figure it out.
He never settles.
Yeah.
No matter how good it is, he's like, that's good for now.
Yep.
But what thinking and doing needs to be bigger to get that to 130 million a month. He's relentless.
He's truly 10x. He's
relentless, dude. This
Yeah.
is the thing about this guy that people don't understand. Yeah, look, since partnering with me, he's become an easier guy for people to get along with. I've changed the guy.
What did you have to change about him?
Look, he was I have to do everything myself, pound my head against a concrete guy. That's what's made
He wasn't
him
good
great.
at delegating.
No, man, he's like, the guy is like every other entrepreneur. He's
Yeah.
like, I know how to do it. I'm going to bust through the wall.
Okay.
I've softened him up a bit. I've shown him
Is that
there's
why
another
he
way.
vacations more now?
It's why he vacations more. It's why he brings you in and talks about collaboration versus,
Yeah.
hey, if you want to spend an hour with me, write me a check.
Ah.
Because he knows that if he's going to spend his time, energy, and effort, he needs to be remunerated and compensated. He never thought that the compensation could come through the collaboration.
What's he spend his day doing now? Now that you guys, like, what's his optimal use of time?
His optimal use is working through, he's got leaders, right? So if you look at our leadership team,
Yeah.
you've got Sherry, she's the chief operating officer for training.
Okay.
You got Jared, he's the marketing officer for both training and for Cardone Capital.
Okay.
You've got Secco, who runs Cardone Capital.
Yep.
You've got Todd, who runs sales.
Okay.
You've got my wife, who's the president of Health and Ventures.
Okay.
You've got me, who's the CEO of Health Ventures, the equity group, all these other things. And we're business partners, but I'm part of that executive team.
Right.
And so what he spends, and then you got Elena.
Yep.
She just had an amazing
I saw
event
that,
with
the
10X Ladies. So
Yep.
we're blowing up relationships, and she's going and teaching people, think of how many married couples are together and they can't figure out how to work together.
Yeah.
Or just you're in a marriage and balancing kids and the business and all that. It's difficult.
Yep.
So she's taking on that role. So he now has 7 executives within his leadership group. And there's a handful of other ones. There's Pete Vargas for Stages.
Yep. For Stages, yep.
And we all collaborate and work together. And he's the guy that comes in and he's like, what are we doing next? Where are we going to go next? How are we going to get there next? How do we support each other? How do we collaborate together? How do we work together? What's the
All
next
the
big-
people within the company still collaborating.
Yeah, making
Because one thing we've struggled with is like, man, I have lots of businesses, nothing near what you guys have, but like I'm on the path and I'm like, how do I devote my time and energy and like my marketing power on social media, to be, I don't want to say equal, but like give each one what it deserves.
And he considers his role as working with all those stakeholders as the lead promoter.
Exactly.
So he's like, write my scripts, tell me what to say. So
That's what I tell these guys.
Exactly. So he's got all of us feeding him, which is why we're all propelling, right?
Yeah.
And then let me tell you another thing. He's freed up because with me and Jared and Sherry and Natalie and Todd and Ryan all working together as a team, which that didn't really exist before. It was him and them. And Elena, we all work together as a team without Grant needing to be involved. It frees him up to go do the strategic stuff, to go negotiate. He's able to go visit people that are billionaires and 100 billionaires to talk about doing deals because his time's freed up. He doesn't need to get bogged down in the operations. He's promoting or he's negotiating. And then it also frees up, he and I spend an enormous time together strategizing.
Yeah.
Just the two of us. No one else knows even what we talk about.
Yep.
And then I'm the execution guy.
Yep.
So my job's to go out across the world, find the relationship, start the dialogues, and then when I feel like they're close enough, I bring him in, and then we close up the deals. If you look at our relationship with the UFC, I mean, we went from nobody knowing us in 18 months to over 100 million impressions on the internet.
Wow.
Look at Gary Brecka, had 108 million views last month on all his channels.
Wow.
Gary Brecka was running a $300,000 business when we bought it.
Yep.
Right? I was coaching him and he got it to 500 grand and then we bought it.
So he started out in ventures.
Ventures bought his business.
Yeah. Like
he
he
had
came in
Streamline
to
Medical.
learn how to grow through ventures.
Yeah. That's what,
And
that's
then-
how we get our clients.
Yeah.
And then the ones I love Gary.
Yeah.
And when I'm up, I lost 40 pounds
With Gary.
which is why I said, we got to buy this business. Cause I'm a scaling expert. The guy's running around like a chicken with his head cut off, dragging his team around,
Yeah.
late to every event,
Yeah.
misshipping shit. He's
Yeah.
a disaster.
Oh, let me tell you,
But
the first
let me
time I scheduled him for the podcast, I texted him. I was like, Gary, you gonna do it? And then like he wasn't here. I was like, Gary, like oh, yeah, I don't know what happened. And I'm just like,
Look,
all right.
I call him a simple genius. Let me tell you why. He is a genius when it comes to health.
Yeah.
Like I've known a lot. I've been in medical my whole life. And he's made it simple.
Yeah.
So people can understand it. And he's so passionate about it. And he has such a demand that he can't even keep track of what he's supposed to do any minute to minute.
Yeah.
So I had to build a business around him.
Yeah.
And that's what I do.
Yeah.
So I compliment what he does. I allow him to be the best version of himself. He allows me to do what I love doing. I'm not, if you go look at Grant and you go look at Gary, I'm not the front guy.
Yeah.
I'm not interviewing Dana White. I'm the one meeting with Dana and putting strategy together and, like talking about the partnership and how we do slap and getting all the contracts done. That's me, man. That's what I do with my team. I don't need to be Grant. And I don't need to be Gary. You already got
those guys. You don't need it.
And that's where having that humility for me is like something I'm very proud of, because I still need to have a presence. People need to know who I am, but I don't need to be the guy. And if you work with me, I want to make you the guy.
Yeah.
So like if you came and worked with me and Grant and I were like, man, we love that dude.
Yeah.
We're not going to paint our hair red, but we love the dude, right?
Yeah.
It's a brand you have.
Yeah.
It's our color, actually. If
yeah,
you
I did this just for you.
And we took a picture.
Yep.
You would fit perfectly into the picture of my plane.
There we go. We'll do it.
We'll
fly to Chileno and I'll take a pic.
Dude, I'll host you. We'll go to Chileno, play some golf.
All right. I'm really going to take you up on it.
You should take me up on it. So the deal is, if we work as a team that way and we function that way and we complement each other and we all have a role, we multiply. And this is why most business owners stay small. They don't understand that output amplifies input. So if you can multiply your output through your teams.
Yeah.
Like how many business owners tell you their marketing sucks and they're frustrated because it's not working?
All of them.
And yet I go in their business and I audit their own team members and they are so disgruntled where they work. All they promote in the community is how much they hate the job they work at.
Right.
If you can't get your own team to go promote your business, you're not going to get some marketing agency to promote it because it's broken.
Yeah.
And the person that broke it is the owner.
Mm.
So here's a question. If you feel like your marketing's not working, then go talk to your team and find out how many team members are promoting your business. Why don't you, instead of spending the money on digital, why not go create an incentive program that every employee that brings new customers in every month gets a paid
an affiliate? Yeah.
They're going to affiliate. Make every employee an affiliate, an ambassador of the brand.
I was literally just telling our team that too. I was like, why isn't every employee not being an affiliate?
Exactly, dude.
Yeah.
Because small thinking always gets small results.
Yeah. So to go back to this, I mean, Gary came through. You guys helped him out and you were like, look.
And he changed my life.
Yeah. Great product, bad operator, right?
Yeah.
And you're like, look, we can help you out or we'll just buy you and we'll blow this thing to the
water. So what I do vision casting. And so we did the vision casting and Gary wanted to change the world.
Yeah.
And Gary's not alone in that. Sage is his partner and Sage was the back office and Gary was the front end and Sage was trying to keep up with Gary, but she didn't have the experience either.
Yeah.
So I was sitting with Gary and Sage one night doing an IV and I'm like, what's your vision for this thing? And they were like, oh, we're getting so worn out and we're getting so demoralized because the harder they push, the less return came into it.
Yeah.
Because they don't know how to scale. This is a problem for all business owners. And so they get on the treadmill and they go faster and faster and faster, but they're not going any further.
Right.
They're just going faster.
Yeah. Just becoming harder.
And so I said, there's a couple different ways to fix it. One way to fix it is for you all to slow down and actually spend the next 15, 18 months going through my programs.
Yep.
Or it's for me to buy you and I do what I do and you do what you do.
Yeah.
And you'll be 100 times bigger.
Yeah.
And they're like, buy us. So we closed September of 2021, I believe. And that month they did about 450,000. I'd been coaching them when they were doing 250 and they did about 450. We're doing over 5 million a month now.
Crazy. It's crazy.
And we're on our way to 10 million a month.
I believe it. So what does your day-to-day look like? Since you're the one, I mean, dude, you got a lot of hats. If Grant's hat is like, just be a marketer and just make big relationships and close big deals. And then he's like, all right, Brandon, take it from here. Like, what does your day-to-day look like?
Well, so when I met Grant, he had Jared, Sherry, and Ryan.
Yeah.
and Elena. The 4 of them were the executive team with Grant. So he had 5 people. I build executive teams. So today I have presidents, vice presidents, executive vice presidents. Like I'm here today with my partner, Jeremy.
Yep.
He's our EVP of revenue.
Yep.
And like I spend my time strategically with Jeremy, with Natalie, with the lawyers, with the accountants, with Candace, who runs our strategic business units that manage our client businesses, with the technology teams. I'm out talking to future business owners. I'm looking at buying and acquiring. I'm out talking partnerships, negotiating supply agreements. All day long, I'm like a curator. I could have 30 things on my schedule, and I'm going to gravitate to the 10 things that really matter the most, and I'm just going to move the other 20 off or hand them to other people.
Yeah.
So I have 3 people that fill my schedule, and I have my schedules packed.
Yeah.
And then I go through the day and I curate the ones I really need to do, and I move the other ones either off or to a different time. And so I just saturate my time, and then we do teaching during events. And when I'm not teaching at the event, the clients that are there that I want to collaborate with, I pull them out of the event. We do collaboration meetings. I'm the chief strategy officer, and then I'm the guy that making sure we live by our core values. Core values that we live by is inspiration. It's my job to always inspire everybody, not just our clients, not their employees, but our employees as well. It's my job to inspire my partners, Grant, to get him excited about things that we're doing. But then it's also my job to make sure that organizationally we have discipline, because without discipline, you can't have the 3rd core value, which is accountability. And without accountability, you can't have the 4th core value, which is alignment. You can't be aligned, because see, every one of our employees, what separates us and what allows us to help business owners is every employee. We have over 30,000 employees across all our companies and my previous company that are on personal, professional, and financial goal planning. Every person knows what their win is going to be 1 year, 3 year, 5 year, if they hit their targets within the organization, personally, professionally, and financially. We put them in our systems and we manage to their goals, not to our goals.
Right.
And so my job is to make sure that alignment's happening. And then 5th, it's my job to make sure there's transparency across the organization, so people aren't dealing with issues. They're not gossiping. They're not underperforming. Like if somebody is not integrating personally, professionally, financially, and operationally, it's my job to make sure the team removes them out of the equation, because they negatively impact the other team members' goals. And then the 6th is get the results. It's my job to make sure everybody knows the most important priority for us to be a leader, because now, see, I have all these business owners coming through and I show my financials.
Yeah.
So can you imagine sitting there and I'm selling you a $250,000 or a $500,000 program.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you my profit was $45 million. Wouldn't you sit there and go, that guy makes a lot of money off me?
No.
But that's what a lot of people think that those owners think. But really what we train those owners to think is, if you're not doing that, then you need me to teach you to do it so you can learn the rules to do it. Yeah.
I think people get caught up, whether it's equity or paying for education or services. They're like, oh, well, I can just figure this out myself. I'm too cheap to do this, or like it'll come eventually, and they have no sense of urgency. They false confidence in that they think they'll figure it out. Or it's like, if you would have figured it out, you'd already figured it out, right? So you're here for a reason. But then the second thing is with equity, it's like, oh, well, I built this company. Like, I'm sure you guys get it a lot. Like, what are you going to be doing? And, you should be in here day to day if I'm going to, and it's like, no, like you guys have hundreds of deals every week you could buy. And it's like, man, if you're going to strategically partner, you already know the value you bring. And it just ends up being this thing where it's like, man, people have this negative mindset where it's like, man, dude, I would love to figure out how to partner with you guys in something, because I just know you guys have already done it for the last 30, 40 years, way longer than, like, it would cut my time frame down 10x, literally.
Yeah, I think the whole idea of equity and partnerships, well, let's just do the math. 31.5 million businesses under 100 million in revenue, and only 1.8% of those businesses, less than 600,000, actually have more than 12 employees. So why would you even be talking about equity if you only have 12 people?
Right.
And 98% of those businesses are stuck under 3 million. So you're small. So you shouldn't even be having those discussions. And if you get approached by somebody who's like, hey, we can take you to 30 million or 300 million.
Yeah.
And you're, and they have proven that they can do it. So most people, if you look at break points, one of the biggest reasons businesses break is bad partnerships, misnegotiated partnership. Like most accountants and lawyers have zero idea about how to structure any of this. So if you're a small business owner and you're like, oh, I want to grow, now I need a partner, and you go give equity, and next thing you know, that partner's not carrying their water, you don't have an operating agreement that talks about how to exit somebody, just like enter them. And why would I ever give anybody equity and just give it to them? Why wouldn't I use a step up in basis? I've already created the value. You get a piece of anything you help create bigger than this, and if you don't create it, you don't get any of it. Yep. Like people do not know how to technically build businesses because the guidance and advice that they get is small thinking, small doing, and inexperience.
Yeah.
I signed up for this, how to build a $1 billion company, a unicorn company, go from startup to $1 billion of value. And that's my goal, is to do that in 60 months. I want to be the first organically grown business that has a unicorn valuation in 60 months. And I'll have it by next year. So I signed up for this Wharton program, and they got a dentist that does $3 million a year teaching it. So my first question is, why is a dentist who only does $3 million teaching a class on how to build a unicorn company? Don't you have a CEO or a founder that can come in and teach a class that actually did it?
Yeah.
Most people, and this is the problem with social media, even with these big personalities, and I have mad respect for some of these people. They are unbelievably accomplished, like Hermosi, people like that. Like, don't question them, just do what they say and follow them, and solid dude who's proven. Yeah. There's a couple other ones. Most of them, though, even with the big names, are entirely full of shit. They don't have a $130 million business they created in 4 years. They don't even have a $25 million business. They have a business that sells the shit that they're pitching. Yeah. And so I tell business owners, look, you need to learn to ask the right questions. Like, what's the most amount of money you've ever made in a year? Show it to me. Don't just tell it to me. Yeah. What's the biggest thing you've personally ever built, quantified by revenues, number of employees, profitability? Because I know a lot of guys that built $100 million companies and sold them for $20 million. And I know guys that built $50 million companies or gals that sold them for $500 million. So you want to listen to the one that did it right. Yeah. And then the third thing is, what's the biggest exit you've ever had? Because if you don't know how to build your business to value, and you're just building it, hoping one day you'll sell it, you're going to get a really low value versus a massively high value. Right. So I've interviewed thousands of businesses that are, and business owners, billionaires, multi-billionaires, 100,000aires, 100 millionaires. Like, this is what I've spent the last 20 years doing. Yeah. And then in order to be an authority, not an expert, but in order to be an authority, I have to prove it. You have to have done it. So when you come to my workshop and you want to sit down with my finance guy, I'll walk you through my financial statements and my P&Ls, because we teach you to do exactly what we do. And it's my job to give you confidence it works. Yeah. That's the transparency part, and then the results part. So that's how we operate, and it's bode very well for us, and we've been able to accumulate a lot of thought leaders and build relationships with remarkable people like you that will become friends, and we'll figure out how to collaborate, and business will happen naturally because we want to spend time together and play golf and have fun, and we like each other anyway. Yep. That's what a relationship is, and that's what a partnership should ultimately be. No, I love that. Where would somebody find out about these workshops and how to work with you guys? Yeah, I mean, the easiest way is go to my Instagram at Brandon M. Dawson, BRANDONM. Okay. Brandon M. Dawson. Dawson. Because we post, we're always posting on there, and you can see some of the things that we're doing in real time. What I'd really love these listeners to do, though, your listeners, is to go order my book, because look, this whole journey I can't wait to read it. I wish you had. I wish you had one. I'd read it before. And if you pre-order, you get the first 2 chapters sent to you immediately. Sweet. And it'll come out in audio as well. But if you pre-order, you get I shot a 15-section workshop. Okay. 3 hours in the studio. Wow. With worksheets. So if you pre-order, when we release the book, we're going to send you that workshop for free. If you order the book afterwards, you're going to pay the $1,000 if you want it. So, so it's my way to add value and to even detail that much more. Yeah. But I explain in the book how I went from broken thinking, despite how good I thought I was. Yeah. It all got taken away. And let me just tell you something. The humility involved with when everything goes away. Yeah. At that point, you're either victim or you're humble. Right. I chose intellectual curiosity and intellectual awareness over intellectual ignorance and intellectual arrogance. It was probably the hardest thing. I'm just going to say this. It is the single hardest thing for any of these business owners to choose. Well, to your point too, like
we all have this like goal of when we think we've made it, right? So a lot of business owners think they've made it when they've made 100,000 or 1 million or 10 million, right? I mean, you made 100 million. So for like most people, you're thinking, dude, I mean, you've made it. And, you know, to let go of that and to say, you know what? No, I haven't made it. Like, let me go learn what this guy's doing. You got to let go of it.
And my podcast is Building Billions with Brandon Dawson, because the book I just put out is 9-figure mindset. Within 36 months, I'm putting out 10-figure mindset.
It's already out.
It's already been written
Yep.
because I'm doing it in real time, and I'm also recording every single thing that we do. So everything's documented.
Yeah.
What we're doing, who we're doing it with, how we're doing it across the 10 elements, the businesses we're helping, it's all out there. And my job is to leave the breadcrumbs so that people can work their way into a higher level of belief about what's possible, and then to help them.
Yeah. I love it. So my last question is this. You know, you guys are obviously building Cardone Ventures as this holdco for all these different things. And we're talking a lot about selling businesses. So the natural question is, you know, is the goal to sell Cardone Ventures? You know, and also too, a lot of people, this is something I've struggled with, and I don't have experience in it, but people are like, oh, well, you know, if it's so personality brand attached, like how can it have value? Because if Grant's not there, or like whatever, right? So what's the plan there?
Yeah. So look, I've started and sold 3 businesses. I've started and founded 4 businesses, including Cardone Ventures. And the first business was called Sonus Hearing. The second business was called Audigy Group. The third business was called Stratus. And the fourth business is called Cardone Ventures. You notice that not any of those businesses have my name associated with them. Because the first thing is the business is going to be bigger than me.
Yeah.
See, most entrepreneurs think they are the business, and that's why they've trapped themselves. Now, Grant Cardone has built one of the largest brands, but it will be the Grant Cardone organization. It will move from the personality to the organization. And
like a JP Morgan.
Exactly. And what we're going to have underneath that is Cardone Financial, Cardone Insurance, Cardone Equities, Cardone Capital, Cardone Enterprises.
50 years from now, you won't even, people going there like, I don't know, JP Morgan.
They'll be watching the AI version of Grant Cardone.
Yeah.
And then for us, the one thing that I've been doing very intentionally is our 10X is like the Nike swoosh.
Yep.
So people will recognize us with the 10X, or they'll recognize us as Grant Cardone organization.
Yeah.
And at some point in the future, one of those may prevail over the other, but all of our operating companies will be 10X companies.
Yes.
And so that will be how people will know us, and they'll know that Grant Cardone is the founder of the 10X movement.
Yes.
And that will be the Grant Cardone organization, founder Grant Cardone of the 10X movement. And then in the 10X movement will be thousands of companies, right? The portfolio that will be billions and billions and billions. So you asked about my intention. This whole thing's going to go public.
Okay, so you're going public.
So, and I'm going to drag all my partners into my IPO with me, and we'll have one of the largest IPOs ever. Because Grant already has a 10X community of 26 million people that adore him and follow him every day. They don't all adore him. He's got haters in there too. But like he says, it's just a perverted form of love, or they wouldn't be paying attention to me. So, but they know the guy knows how to make money, right?
Yeah.
And so our real estate portfolio will be tens of billions. Our business portfolio will be tens of billions, and we'll invite the whole world to collaborate with us. And that's what I bring to the equation from a strategic standpoint.
What's the plan with the IPO? When
well, you know, when it makes the most sense, and because we're going to go through this cycle right now, there'll be another 7-year up cycle probably in the next 2 or 3 years, depending on who gets elected and what's going on a macro level. And so we will be IPO ready in 12 months, and then we'll just do it when the market is at
when
the
it makes sense.
When it makes sense.
So you'll be ready in 12 months.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, IPO readiness is really important. A lot of people don't understand what it even means to do that, but every business owner should be sell ready in real time. Because if you're always thinking you're going to sell your business, you're always focused on value. And if you're always focused on value, you're going to make more and do more and have more to share while you own the business.
Yeah.
So you need to be thinking that way as a mature business owner versus an adolescent one, which is, oh, it's my baby and it's all about me and my personality.
Yeah. I love it. Well, dude, I appreciate you sharing all the wisdom. This free consultation was amazing. I'm inspired. I am thinking bigger. And I'm excited to read your book when it comes out, guys. Check it out. What was the website again for the book?
9-Figure Mindset, NINE figuremindset.com.
9figuremindset.com. We will link to it down below. If you are interested in working with Cardone Ventures and partnering or getting education, just go to Brandon's Instagram. We'll link to that down below, and make sure you're subscribed. I'll play the episode that I did with Grant about 8 months ago on the next thing. So if you stay on here, you can watch that episode next. Thanks, guys. Peace.
So this dude walks up and says, "Are you legit? I see these other videos made about you, and is it a scam? Is it real?" And I'm like, "Bro, I've never lost money in real estate, ever."
Just like with haters, you mentioned it. Like people saying, "Is Grant a scam? This or that?" I've even had people tell me, "You need to watch yourself. Grant's not in your